Halloween 2, directed by Rick Rosenthal and released in 1981, is the follow-up to John Carpenter's genre-defining 1978 classic Halloween. It picks up immediately after the events of the original, maintaining the same setting, characters, and chilling atmosphere that made the first film a slasher masterpiece. While the sequel may not reach the iconic status of its predecessor, it successfully expands on the mythology of Michael Myers, while delivering an experience that is genuinely suspenseful and entertaining for horror enthusiasts. One of the central controversies surrounding Halloween 2 is the very fact that it exists. The 1978 original was not designed to spawn sequels. Michael Myers was meant to be a symbol of unstoppable evil, a force of nature that didn't require further elaboration. John Carpenter himself has been vocal about his reluctance to make a sequel, admitting that it was driven largely by the box office success of the first film. He even confessed to writing the script for Halloween 2 under the influence of alcohol, as he struggled to justify continuing a story that he felt had been concluded. However, financial pressures and the growing demand for slasher films in the early 1980s led to the green lighting of the sequel. To Carpenter's credit, even though he didn't return to direct, he contributed to the film's production and co-wrote the screenplay with Debra Hill. Despite his misgivings, Halloween 2 manages to retain much of the tension and terror that defined the original, making it one of the more successful horror sequels of the era. One of the notable differences between Halloween and its sequel is the shift in tone. The original film was praised for its minimal use of blood and reliance on suspense and atmosphere to create fear. Halloween 2, however, reflects the growing influence of films like Friday the 13th, which had set new standards for on-screen violence and gore. As a result, Halloween 2 includes more graphic kills and explicit violence, which has divided fans over the years. On one hand, the increased violence could be seen as a response to audience expectations, as slasher films in the early 80s became synonymous with elaborate death scenes. On the other hand, some argue that this change dilutes the original's more subtle, psychological approach to horror. Regardless of where you stand, Halloween 2 remains a tense, fast-paced ride, and Michael Myers is no less terrifying for it. Michael Myers, known as the Shape, continues to be the enigmatic, faceless killer from the first film. Portrayed again by Nick Castle in the opening scenes, with stuntman Dick Warlock taking over for the majority of the movie, Myers stalks the halls of Haddonfield Memorial Hospital with the same eerie silence and emotionless determination. One of the sequel's most effective choices is how it amplifies the sense of claustrophobia. The dimly lit, largely abandoned hospital provides an unnerving backdrop for Michael's relentless pursuit of Laurie Strode. The hospital setting, while sometimes critiqued for being unrealistic, why is there so little staff around, works well for the film's atmospheric tension. The long, narrow hallways and sterile environments contrast sharply with the chaotic violence Michael inflicts, emphasizing the film's underlying sense of dread. Jamie Lee Curtis reprises her role as Laurie Strode, though this time her character is more passive for much of the film, largely bedridden due to her injuries from the first movie. Some fans of the original Laurie, who was resourceful and resilient, may be disappointed by how sidelined she feels for much of the movie. However, Curtis still brings a vulnerability to the role that makes her final confrontation with Michael in the hospital's boiler room one of the most intense moments of the film. This sequel also reveals a significant piece of lore that would go on to define the Halloween franchise. Laurie is Michael Myers' sister. This twist was controversial even at the time, and was reportedly something Carpenter himself added in desperation to give the story a hook. While it provides motivation for Michael's obsession with Laurie, it also transforms him from a force of pure evil into a more personal, targeted killer, a shift that some fans have felt undermines the terrifying randomness of his original attacks. Michael Myers' iconic mask in Halloween 2 is the same one used in the 1978 original, but it looks noticeably different. This is largely because it was stored under a bed during the 3-year gap between films, causing it to lose some of its shape. Additionally, Dick Warlock's shorter stature and rounder face caused the mask to fit differently, giving it a slightly altered appearance. The film contains a number of subtle homages to Night of the Living Dead. For instance, the news report Laurie watches in the hospital waiting room references scenes and lines from George Romero's classic zombie film. Carpenter, a fan of Romero's work, included these nods as a way to connect Halloween to the broader horror canon. One of the most darkly humorous moments of the film involves Ben Tramer, Laurie's high school crush from the first movie. He meets a bizarre and tragic fate when he's mistaken for Michael Myers, leading to his death in a fiery car crash. This scene adds to the film's growing body count, but also underscores the chaos that Michael's rampage has caused throughout Haddonfield. While Halloween 2 will always live in the shadow of the original, it is an accomplished slasher film in its own right. Rick Rosenthal's direction remains faithful to Carpenter's vision, maintaining a sense of foreboding tension even as the film moves into more graphically violent territory. The decision to directly continue the first film's storyline works surprisingly well, providing a rare instance in horror cinema where a sequel feels organically connected to its predecessor. The film's legacy is somewhat complicated by the franchise's later installments, but in its own time, Halloween 2 offered a satisfying and thrilling continuation of Michael Myers' terror. Though some of the choices, like the sibling twist, have sparked debate among fans, they have become integral to the mythology of the Halloween series. All in all, Halloween 2 delivers exactly what fans of the original might have hoped for: more Michael, more Laurie, and more suspense-filled terror.